The Republican Zone is brought to you by Drew Murray, a modern view from the Republican lens, covering local and national news, understanding that one size doesn't fit all when it comes to politics. The Republican Zone airs Wednesday from 1 to 2 p.m. and Saturday from 3 to 4 p.m.
Good afternoon. You're listening to USLA Radio and the Republican Zone. I am your host, Drew Murray, here with my friend and co-host, Leslie Acosta.
All right, Drew.
All right, we are here. This is my first show since the election.
Yeah.
I lost,
Well,
but
that
was not a
that was
surprise.
expected, right?
That was expected. Yeah, a lot of people called me and said, "Oh, I'm so sorry I lost. You know, how you feeling?" I'm like, I knew I was losing this one. This one was a favor to the Republican Party. For me to get into a race of someone that they definitely do not like very much in Brian Sims.
Yeah.
And also just to give people a choice on election day. You know, normally, especially in my district and even my neighborhood, you just have one choice.
Yeah. Did you
In
lose
local
by a lot?
election. Oh, I lost by a lot. I was hoping for 30%, and I think I came in more close, probably closer to 17, 18%, but I think that's the Trump effect.
Yeah.
In Center City,
Oh yeah.
people really do not like
Trump.
Trump.
Yeah, they're
So
not.
I think a lot of people. I have to look at the final data. I have a feeling that a lot of people didn't even vote down ballot because I don't think the numbers were that high. But I have to look at that again. So I think a lot of people just voted for president and stopped, or voted all the way down the left hand side.
Well, listen, it was a massive turnout. 6 million people
Yeah.
turned out in Pennsylvania. I think that's historic. That's a lot of people that came out in massive numbers for both parties.
And what is the total? I know there's 12 million population. How many
we have
registered
12
voters?
we
is
have.
it like
I don't know
it
exactly.
might be 8,000? I
Yeah.
would assume
Yeah.
because obviously children are not registered voters.
Right.
So.
Right.
But no, it was historic. It was. I was up late watching, like probably most people. When I went to bed, it seemed like Trump was going to win. But then when we woke up,
Well, he was up in
A lot of things
Pennsylvania,
changed.
by 600,000 votes.
yes,
And then that kept dwindling down as the vote continued.
which we knew was going to happen.
We knew it was gonna
We knew the
happen.
mail-ins were going to be lean more toward Democrats.
Well, and that was a given. Trump told his people to go vote in person, and Biden encourages people to vote by mail-in ballot. And at the end of the day, the mail-in ballot was the winner. It skewed heavily Democratic.
Well, I think even if it was full mail, I mean, I just think Republicans tend to vote in person.
Yeah.
So I'll be curious what the data is on how many Republicans voted versus how many Democrats voted. I don't know if that data is out yet in Pennsylvania. It probably isn't because they're not done counting.
Yeah.
And
Well, they're still counting, but according to the Associated Press, Joe Biden now has 290 electoral votes
yes,
to Donald Trump 217. And I know they're still counting. You were talking about before we started the show, there were some issues in Michigan.
there's some issues in Michigan, and I can't speak to them. There was some sort of software glitch that they might recount Michigan. And we'll see Arizona too. I think Arizona's going to be close enough to recount. Not that there's issues, but I think Arizona might be close enough for the recount.
Yeah. Well,
So I don't think it's over. You think it's over? I think it's probably over.
yeah. I mean, if you would have said, that we had Pennsylvania in Donald Trump's column, then that's kind of iffy. But because Pennsylvania right now, he's winning Pennsylvania, Joe Biden, and they're still counting. There's about 80,000 ballots left to count. He is up almost 48,000 votes in Pennsylvania. That's going to be a heavy lift to turn that out. And I don't see any court, whether it's the Supreme Court here in Pennsylvania or whether it's the United States Supreme Court, to overturn or to disenfranchise people that voted for either candidate. But obviously, Biden came on top when it came to
Yeah, and I think it'll still be Pennsylvania. But I will tell you that there are issues. And if you've heard on the news that there were canvassers who are not permitted into the convention center.
Yeah, but that issue, yeah. I mean,
And I will tell you, guess who one of those canvassers were who were not permitted into the convention center?
who was that?
You're looking at them.
Oh, you were not
I
allowed?
was not permitted in, and I'm getting a lot of phone calls about that because I was a candidate. They had no right to not permit
But
me
why?
in.
What was their? Did they say?
They didn't
why-
say anything when I walked. So it was Thursday. The Trump campaign asked a lot of people to be canvassers. I didn't necessarily want to do it, but I thought, you know what, I'll do it for transparency. I know the commissioners. I know Al Schmidt. He's beyond reproach. I know
He's a good
everything.
guy.
Everything is getting done correctly. So I said yes, more for, not that funny things don't go on in Philadelphia. Let's be honest, but not by the commissioners.
Yeah.
So I thought, you know what, I'll do it, and it'll be for transparency, for democracy, and not necessarily because I think anything that the commissioners or anybody was doing anything wrong.
Yeah.
But I showed up on Thursday. My shift was 8 a.m. to 4 p.m.
Yeah.
I showed up at quarter of, like they asked me to.
Yeah.
And they just said I wasn't on the list. And it didn't seem like a big deal at the time. It was like, the commissioners maybe just didn't update the list yet for canvassers. So, wait outside for a little bit, and an hour goes by, still nothing.
Yeah.
I'm talking to the Trump campaign being like, what's going on? I can't stay here all day, 2 hours go by.
Yeah.
And I left. I think at the very end of the day, people were finally permitted in. But I look at that, and again, I don't think there's anything nefarious, but why did they not let people in? It was very strange to me that they did not permit anyone in. And I know people who were in the day before, they were like 50 feet, 20 feet away. So
Yeah.
they couldn't see anything anyway. And then, the court decision did permit them to go within 6 feet. So I still don't know why I was not permitted in.
But look, yeah, I think you
And it
were
may
not,
not be. It could be nothing. It could be. I just don't know.
Well, listen, it's a dangerous precedence that Donald Trump is setting, where he is challenging the legitimacy of voters. I'm not saying that every vote was legal. I'm not going to say that, but a lot of people, like myself, are legitimate votes, and thousands of Leslies and Drews voted in this election and voted for one candidate or another. And so to delegitimize the vote and disenfranchise people that voted, 77 million people who voted for Joe Biden and 72 million that voted for Donald Trump, we got to be very careful with that.
Sure.
And, you got to accept the results for what they are. Challenge what you have to challenge. Do the recount where you have to do the recount, but you have to accept the reality that this election will not be overturned, that Joe Biden is president-elect, and I don't foresee any higher court, the highest court of the land, the Supreme Court, to overturn this election.
Well, I will say that he is not president-elect yet, because
Well, he is.
the AP does not determine who the president-elect is. The Secretary of States of each of the states
And they will
determine
certify,
that.
and they will certify the
And
electorate.
I think Biden will be the president-elect, but he's not there yet.
I think he has 290 electoral votes. He's
And
president-elect.
there are a few states that are still pretty close and will need to be recounted.
How are you going to recount in Arizona 45,000 votes that he's ahead?
Well, as I said, Michigan. There was an issue in Michigan. And what's Michigan? Is it 11? Is it
yeah.
11 or 12? Electoral votes.
No, in Michigan you have 16, I think.
Oh, it's 16.
Let me see
So
if
that
I'm
doesn't
right.
get you below 270.
16. In Arizona you have 11. In Georgia you have 16. He's winning in Georgia.
The
and
290 doesn't count Georgia, does it?
290 does not count Georgia. That is Nevada. They gave Nevada to Joe Biden. Outstanding right now is Arizona, Michigan, Georgia. Everything else went to Trump. But how do you can't, states are not going to get into counting a margin of 45,000 votes.
Oh, if it's within 1%.
That is not within 1%. I mean, for instance, in Georgia, 49.5%. Well, it depends what the rule is and the law is in that particular
I think
state.
it's 1% in some states.
In Georgia.
0.5%.
I mean, in Michigan.
Yeah, and 0.5 in others.
Yeah.
But the candidate can always ask for one. I think when it's
If you're
above
less than one, if you're less than what, 1%?
Is it one? Every state was different. I thought some states under 1% was automatic,
Yeah.
or maybe it was 0.5, and then in some states, if it was greater than 1, then
But
less than a certain
let's
amount.
go to Michigan. Biden won over 100,000 votes in Michigan. You can't do a recount of 100,000 votes.
Again,
Are you kidding
and
me?
I need to read
And that's
more
not
into that.
and
but-
that's not less than 1%. It's 50.6% to 47.9%. That's well over 100. There's no way, Drew. States are gonna get into. I mean, counting. I mean, you know the amount of money this is going to cost. And in reality, what they want to do is establish. Let me just say this and put it out there, Drew. The Trump campaign is in debt $33 million. Okay? They got to raise money to offset.
That's why I'm
The-
still getting
the-
texts to give them some money. And I don't have any money to give them.
So they're in debt in the hole for $33 million. They don't have any money. They want to establish this legal fund to get this fight. And who's going to get the money? The lawyers are going to get this money. You know, they want to be able to pay the debt they have in this campaign. Let's look at it from a political perspective. It has nothing to do with voter fraud. Did fraud exist across the United States? Probably so, but I don't think to the extent where they're going to overturn an election. I don't foresee that happening, Drew.
I don't think it's getting overturned. I just think it's still too close to say definitively call him president-elect.
He
Biden.
Drew.
He can call
we don't-
himself
we
President-elect
don't-
Biden.
We don't want to accept that reality, but by tradition and historically, when you surpass the 270, you are president-elect. You know, Trump is not a conventional
Well, of
guy.
course, there was President-elect Gore as well. There was absolutely President-elect Gore, if you remember.
Yeah. Well,
that
actually,
didn't
Bush
turn out
Bush
very
had
well.
won, and then Gore challenged he
But
wanted.
Gore was called, and look again. I don't think President Trump is going to win, but I don't think that the margins are far enough away that we should just automatically assume and say it's Biden.
Well, let me ask you this: How
Like
about?
I think it's 99% sure that it's Biden.
Okay. Well,
But there's
what
1%
about
chance.
the states that Trump won? Can then Biden
No, there
ask
was
for?
no cheating. There was no cheating there.
Can we then ask for a recount there?
Yeah, no, they're all good. They're all good. Those states. And look, we've been on. I have been very critical of the president. So but when you look at the entire election, though, we heard of this big blue wave that was coming.
Well, the blue wave didn't happen. That
I
was
think
that was a miscalculation
That
on
was
the
a
pollster.
huge miscalculation.
A huge miscalculation. In fact, the Republicans gained 8 seats in the House of Representatives. So that's not a blowout. In fact, we lost seats.
You lost seats.
Lost seats, right? Now there's the battle for the Senate. And you know that there's 2 races in Georgia that the tipping of the balance of power balance hangs on those 2 seats. And those 2 seats are very, very close. Very close.
I thought one was close, one was not that close.
The Purdue and Ossoff race, I think they're inching there a little bit closer, but I don't know. And they
But
run
you
down.
don't know what happens because it's like ranked choice voting. Is that what they do in Georgia? And
They
that's
do.
why?
If you don't
Or if
surpass
you don't get-
50%, you have to go to the runoff in January.
So, how many do each have now? The Republicans have 49,
49, 48.
49, 48
But remember, the vice president is
is the tiebreaker.
the tiebreaker.
Theoretically,
So
the vice president-
if they gain the 2 seats, that puts them at 50, right?
but
48,
there's still
49
one missing. That's what I was confused.
It's
about.
50. 40. Is it
49.
51?
Well, right now, what I saw was 48 to 49,
Right.
With two with 2 unknowns.
So with that 48, if they win the 2 Senate
That's
seats,
50.
and then Kamala becomes the tiebreaker in the Senate.
But there's 100 senators. That's what I was confused about when I was looking at the numbers.
Yeah. So it's 50.
If it's 49, 48 now,
No.
there's only 2 that are outstanding.
So it's
in Georgia.
47, I think.
Oh, maybe 47. I was confused because I was trying to look at that this morning, and I was confused. But I guess the bottom line is, if they split Georgia, then
If they split, it gives them 48, 49.
so there's got to be someone missing.
Yeah, I don't know. So
We gotta look that up.
yeah.
Leslie's she's got the computer. So, well, I'll tell you what. Why don't we take a quick break?
Yep.
We'll try to figure that out. You're listening to USLA Radio with Drew Murray and Leslie Acosta. We'll be back in a minute.
Our hearts are made stronger by how we treat others.
Put her there.
The light you share can impact those around you, but so can the darkness.
Later, twerps!
Did Pete saying mean things bother you?
So when you reach out to another person, take a moment to consider how they will feel and let your heart be the key to making a difference. Because of you, someone's entire day, year, or even life can change.
In every heart, there's hope.
$150 over 90.
180 over 111.
160 over 110. I had a stroke.
This is what high blood pressure looks like. You might not feel its symptoms, but the results from a stroke are far from invisible or silent. If you've come off your treatment plan, get back on it or talk with your doctor to create an exercise, diet, and medication plan that works for you. Go to loweryourhbp.org.
If I would have followed a treatment plan, I would not be in this situation.
Because of you, I feel not alone in this world. And you let me know that it only takes one person to make you feel wanted.
What do you think you're doing, Kevin?
Was just gonna drive home.
There are several warning signs present that you shouldn't be driving.
Like hearing voices?
Like your text-to-emoji ratio?
Oh man, the selfies. Selfie, nailed it.
We all have warning signs that let us know that we're probably not okay to drive. Mine is pretending to be your subconscious.
Craig, come on man, let's split a ride home.
Welcome back. You're listening to Usula Radio with Drew Murray and Leslie Acosta, and we are talking about, right now we're into the Senate now, and Leslie and I were trying to figure out, over the break, the numbers.
So you need 51 for majority.
Well, there's 100 senators,
Okay,
plus
so-
Kamala.
But you need 51 for majority,
Yes.
correct? Okay, so you have right now other parties, they've won 2 seats. So those are independent seats that won those seats,
So there's 98 left.
right? So then you have the Democratic Party right now has 46 and 2 being contested in Georgia. So that would put, if they win those 2 seats in Georgia, that would put them at 48. The 2 other parties that ran as independent, they're with the Democrats. They will vote with the Democrats.
So what you're saying then
And
is,
Kamala then becomes 51.
so we need to, I say we,
So if
Republicans need to win both of those seats in Georgia.
and it's crucial. They don't win both of the seats, they're done.
Then they won't.
They right. Then the power, the balance of power goes to the Democrats. But you're saying that there's one seat that is heavily contested. It seems like of the Republican. I
One?
think it's Purdue who's ahead, right?
Well, the one I looked at, what I did was I added up all the Democrat votes, because you would think if someone voted for a Democrat, they're going to vote for a Democrat again, and it was like 51 to 49, but for Republican. The other one, I thought was more like 55, 45, Republican versus Democrat. Neither one was a blowout though. Both were somewhat close. But it's more that then I guess it's more important then for Republicans to win both of those, because you're saying both independents vote with the Democrats typically.
Typically they do.
Are they moderate independents or are they?
I typically they do. They would vote with the Democratic Party. I mean, it's very rare that they will vote with the Republican. So if they're
Is that
center,
these
if they're
spec-
center left, you have an issue there. If they're center right, they might. Right. But that race in Georgia, a lot of money has been poured into that.
Oh, I'm sure a lot
millions.
more, and a lot more are going to.
They're saying they're estimating these 2 races up in the tune of $1 billion for these 2 races.
And is this just for the runoff?
And this is just for the runoff.
And when is that race?
That race is in January. So they did, in order for you to win in Georgia, the rules are kind of different. They need to crack above 49%. Neither one got 49. Well, they got 49, but they didn't get to the 50% mark. So then they have to go to a runoff in January to win. And so I don't know how this is going to. And but Warnock, who is running against the pastor, who's a veteran, she's an extremist. She's a very extremist Republican. And that race, they might lose that particular race. Georgia flipped blue. Georgia was a red state.
Yes.
And it has flipped to a blue state.
But is the woman an incumbent? Who's
She
running
is an
against-
incumbent.
She's an incumbent.
Both of them, Purdue and Warnock.
Purdue and Warnock are both.
Are incumbents, right? But this is going to be something very interesting to see. Who's going to come out of this race? I'm a little concerned about the rhetoric coming out of the White House, not in particular the White House, but of Donald Trump not willing to concede. In fact, not willing to give President-elect Biden access to transitional funding which that historically has been done, where there's funds to start the transition team, and that has not. He has told the people that manage the transition team not to give access, even intelligence briefing. That's concerning. I mean, we know that this guy is not conventional in his thinking, but this can be very detrimental and damaging
Well, he needs to come up with, if he's going to say there's fraud, he's got to come up with some sort of proof.
Well, listen, there's been 30 challenges so far across the in these states that he's challenging, and every single challenge has been declined. In other words, the courts have thrown out because there's no evidence of it. You have to have evidence. You have to have substantiated evidence of fraud. And if you don't have it, they're going to throw these cases out. They're going to throw these cases out. I think the only case he might have to battle would be where it's very close. I think it's Wisconsin, which is about 10,000 votes or so. But other than that, you're talking about margins of 45,000, 35,000, 16,000. I mean, in my estimation, you can contest a race where you have like 1,000 votes difference, but when you're having 16, 45, that's a lot. That's a lot to
I would probably go a little bit higher than 1,000, but
yeah,
I don't think 40,000 is going to be. They're not going to find 40,000 votes that were incorrect.
I mean, come on, Drew. I mean, it's it's just not. It's crazy. What we're going. This is a circus. I mean, what we're going through, what we're seeing. Never in the history, we've gone through this, and he has to relinquish power. The voters spoke. Whether you want to believe that or not, whether you want to believe in your mind that it was fraud, that it was stolen from you, you have the right to believe that. But we cannot disenfranchise 77 million people.
But I don't think he's disenfranchising them. I think he's asking to make sure that the votes are done correctly.
Well, you're not going to find all these votes.
Well, you never know.
Drew?
You and I both know the voter rolls in the city of Philadelphia are horrendous. There are so many people who should be off those rolls who have moved out of the state, because there should be laws that if someone moves from the state of Pennsylvania to another state, there should be a notification of some point. And there are some partnerships with some states, but for the most part, if someone leaves the state of Pennsylvania, people have no idea that they left. Unless, like, imagine if you left the city of Philadelphia.
Yeah.
Would you think to call the commissioner's office and say, I'm Leslie Acosta, I just moved to New Jersey, take me off the voter roll?
Yeah.
Of course you would, and no one would.
Well, that's.
So I think there are a lot.
Yeah, but I don't think to the tune of 45,000
No,
people.
but I do think, number one, we do need to clean up those voter rolls, because if you don't vote in, let's say, 3 election cycles in a row, your name should be taken off. Maybe it's 5. It's got to be something. But these people have not voted for 10 years and are still on the voter rolls. That's a problem.
Yeah, but
do I think it's 40,000? I don't know.
You cannot hinge the presidency on a problem that has been exacerbated for a long time with with the Bob Brady's of the world and all that, who is in control of this Democratic Party. You cannot hinge the presidency on that.
I mean, I hear you, but if I'm the president and I'm saying, well, there could be voter roll issues, there could be people who should not be voting anymore, and who theoretically, especially, could have voted in New Jersey and Pennsylvania.
Well, let me ask you this question. Trump won Pennsylvania last time in 2016 by the same margin. How come it wasn't fraud then?
Maybe there was.
So we got it.
Maybe there was. You never know.
Good for the goose is good for the gander.
But this is different.
Why is it different?
Because we have mail-in, and we have mail-in for the first time.
Yeah.
And it didn't go so well. It went okay in the primary, but in the primary, it almost didn't matter. At least at a presidential level, it didn't matter. By the time it got to PA, it was done.
Look, the coronavirus was a force of nature. We can't control what nature.
And Act 77 was done before coronavirus.
That's right.
But no one thought it would be this much, and no one thought it would be to this extent. And it's just when you add up everything, the voter rolls aren't good. You do have ballot harvesting. I was completely against the early drop-off locations. The 17 early drop-off locations, which were not drop-off locations. Well, they were early voting locations. You could walk in, you could register, you could get your ballot,
and
you could vote, and you could put a ball. So the first mistake I thought that was made, there should have been poll watchers in those locations.
Yeah.
And there wasn't.
Well, remember, this is the first time Pennsylvania encounter this type of stuff, right?
Yeah.
And I think this is a lesson learned, and then going forward, those things can be implemented in the next election. But I think for the most part, given all these 6 million people that voted in Pennsylvania, especially here in Philadelphia, I mean, the turnout was over 600,000 here in the city of Philadelphia. I got to give kudos to the people who really, got the vote out. They got the vote out, especially the Latino and the Black vote came out in huge numbers for the Biden for the Biden camp. And so, listen, this is a game, of who gets the vote out. Trump was able to get his voters out in these rallies, and he was able to get them to the polls. And the Democrats are very effective in getting their people out through the mail-in ballot.
And it was very close. That's why I'm saying we shouldn't.
Well,
Again, I think he will be president-elect Biden. I just don't know if he's there yet. And it's because of these, it's not just one issue. It's not just voter fraud. It's not just the voter rolls having issues. It's not just, ballot harvesting. It's not just the early polling locations, which should have had poll watchers. I mean, that was the first mistake that was made, in my opinion.
Yeah.
I mean, Trump went nuts because he didn't have poll watchers at these locations when they were early voting locations. It wasn't a drop box where you walked up. You could literally vote early. And the fact that they did not allow poll watchers in there was a big mistake. And it just gave President Trump, ammunition to say, look, fraud happens in Philadelphia. And it does. The only thing that it normally does, I mean, we've had this conversation before.
Listen,
it's normally Democrats against Democrats cheating against each other.
And I'll tell you, I agree with you.
Yeah.
In Philadelphia, and I can tell you, by example, when Fred Ramirez ran for state rep in the 197th district that I was a state rep, Fred lost that election by 54 votes. How do you win every 6 wards and lose 1 ward, and that's where that candidate wins? Impossible. You know for a fact that there was...
That's a lot of wards. Is it the one ward that was 100% in it?
So the 197 has 7 wards.
That's a lot of wards.
Okay? Fred won 6 out of the 7 and still lose the election? Now, obviously there was fraud that was committed, and in particular in the 19th ward. But we don't want to go there, and you're right. To your point and to your example, yes, it does occur even within our own party. It does exist. But, this is a different scenario. We're talking about a presidential election here. And I got to give kudos to the African-American community and to the Latinos. They voted. 75% went heavily towards Biden. And you had the Black vote here in Philadelphia. 90-some% went towards Biden. So the turnout between those two Black and brown communities was heavy for Biden.
All right, so we'll take another break. You're listening to USLA Radio, and the Republican Zone will be back in a couple minutes.
Not completing
Our
high
hearts are
school
made
is more
stronger
of a
by how
social
we treat
thing than it
others.
was an
Put her there.
academic thing.
The
Even though all
light you
these
share
years
can
have
impact
passed,
those
I
around you,
still had
but
that
so can the
longing to
darkness.
have my diploma.
Later, twerps.
I have a mentor, and
Did
she
Pete
convinced
saying
me
mean
to
things
continue
bother
my
you?
So
education.
when you reach out to another person,
No
take
one
a moment
receives
to
the
consider
diploma
how they will
alone.
feel,
If
and
you're
let your
even
heart be the key to making a difference. Because of you, someone's entire day, year, or even life can change.
In every heart, there's hope.
They call me Maxie, but I prefer tripod. I was your above-average four-legged homie, and then wham, bam, minivan. Some people pity me. Now that's lame. I still run, fetch, and swim. And the ladies love me. I'm the ultimate wingman. Just don't ask me to high five.
Sí, tenía miedo. No sabía si iba a poder hacerlo.
Encuentra clases gratis para adultos cerca de ti en completatudiploma.org.
Welcome back. You're listening to Usula Radio and the Republican Zone. I'm your host, Drew Murray, with my friend and co-host, Leslie Acosta. We're still talking about the election, and we actually figured something out over the break because we were wrong actually before.
Yeah.
So in order for the Democrats to take control of the Senate, they need to win both
seats.
The seats in Georgia.
In Georgia.
So,
because right now they're at 48, and Republicans are at 50. So if they win the 2 seats, 50-50, Kamala then becomes a tiebreaker.
all right. So I'm going to make a prediction.
Yeah.
You want to bet? Should we bet?
Go ahead.
The Republicans take at least one, without a doubt.
I agree.
Without a doubt.
I agree.
Because if I live in Georgia, and the president's a polarizing figure, and I say I'm going to vote against the president, and for the first time, Georgia goes blue. If I'm looking at this race, and I live in those states, I'm going to say, you know what? I don't want. If I'm traditionally a Republican or somewhat conservative, I don't want Democrats holding the House, the president, and the Senate. So I'm going to vote. I'm going to vote red. Even if I voted for Biden, I'm voting for Republican senators if I'm a moderate.
Yeah.
Obviously, if you're far left Democrat, you're not going to do that. But I think if you have a moderate, then I think you're going to see a lot of moderates go.
Well, let me just say this. There was an independent candidate that took 2.3% of the vote from Ossoff, who's running against Perdue. If that 2.3% then goes and votes for Ossoff, who will be the alternative, that can put him well over the top. He's at 48% right now, right? So that would put him at 50%. If we're hypothetically speaking, but we don't know. What we know is that less than 5 million people put this race in overtime.
Yes.
That's why they're doing this runoff in
Does this
January.
happen a lot? I wonder. You would think oftentimes that in any state that does this, they would not get 50%. I wonder if this happens often, but it never came into play before because it wasn't this close.
It wasn't this close. And what, to my surprise, Georgia has flipped because Biden won Georgia. That tells me that you have a lot of younger voters. You have more African American in the urban communities that really push that vote there. So the demographics are also changing, and that's a very interesting dynamic, including Arizona. Arizona flipped also blue. It was a red state. So you gotta think about the damage that Trump has done with his rhetoric, and so the voters, they spoke. That to me, when a state flips from one column to another, that's a protest vote. When Pennsylvania went to Trump in 2016, that was a protest vote. That was to spank the Democrats. So we gotta look.
But when you look at the polls versus what actually happened,
well,
it was a very close election.
Well,
even in the popular vote,
yeah,
it was still within a couple percentage points.
I think the polls didn't get it right this time again.
The polls were completely wrong.
One of the things that the polls did not capture is we call them the shy vote, the Trump shy vote, which is the people that silently wouldn't tell you that they were voting for Trump, but voted for Trump. So when pollsters they called and they did these inquiries, they didn't include that vote in their tallies.
I always wonder this. I've never been called once in my life from a poller.
Well,
I've voted in every election and I've never gotten called. So where did they get their numbers? I mean, they from a statistical standpoint, they have to be random.
Yeah.
And they would have to have a decent size number of people.
Yeah.
To complete that data, and I've never gotten called. Have you ever gotten called?
I've never been called. And you're right. I don't know where they get this polling from, but they get these polling.
I think we should just stop doing them, honestly, and I don't honestly know who they helped. When Biden was up, did it actually hurt him in the polls?
Well,
did it actually hurt him?
Because the expectation, because the polls everything was favoring Biden. And yet, if you look at this race, it was more closer than what the polls had predicted, especially in these battleground states. Florida had Biden up by 2 points.
Yeah.
And 2 points in Florida is a blowout. They had him ahead in Ohio. They had him ahead, and Trump won all of these states.
Especially what was Pennsylvania? Wasn't Pennsylvania like 7 points to Biden? Something crazy?
8 points.
And
And it didn't happen that way.
And it didn't even come close to that.
It didn't come close. So, I think these polls, they have to readjust the way they do their polling, because obviously their polling seems to be very, very off. They don't seem to capture the people that they should be capturing to really make these polls accurate. But this race was closer than what the polls had predicted.
And I hope going forward we don't have to be shy on who we vote for, because I think it's ridiculous. And the anger that people would spew toward Trump voters was ridiculous. I mean, a lot of people voted against the Democratic Party because they're sick of the Democratic Party and they don't want the Democratic Party. See, I thought this election was a mandate to the Democratic Party. We don't want people like AOC. We voted for Biden because we really dislike President Trump, and we didn't want 4 more years of him. But look at all the other seats that you lost. When I say you, the Democrats, I thought it was, I'll be honest with you, I thought that was a mandate to the Democratic Party that you better come back toward the middle.
Well, I'm going to tell you this. I really believe that President-elect Biden is a moderate guy. He's going to have to appease the left-wing Democrats, the progressive left wings like the AOCs of the world, like Bernie Sanders, because they really coalesced around Biden. And he got that vote. So he's going to have to appease the left wing of the party in order to get anything done. AOC is already talking against Joe Biden appointee. If that goes, certain appointees that he is looking at, she's already being critical of that. And they want, the left wing of the party, they want a seat at the table, in not only in the transition team, but also in cabinet positions. So you got to be very careful how you do that. I mean, I'm not a hung ho about AOC. She does have her following. She's very progressive in her thinking. This climate change thing that she's on.
Have you ever read the Green New Deal?
Well, the Green New Deal. Listen, it has some good stuff, but it also has we're talking about trillions of dollars to implement this, and the price tag of this is at the tune of well over trillions of dollars. And who's going to pay that bill? Who's going to foot that bill? The taxpayer, right? So we have to be very.
It was socialism 101. I mean,
because
this is
but
what
Biden is not a socialist.
Remember, when in the Green New Deal, it stated that jobs that are created to better the environment would be created, and there would be guaranteed jobs. That means everyone will be guaranteed a job in the Green New Deal. That is the definition.
You think
communism.
That's
not even socialism.
And you think that's true?
No, that was written in the Green New Deal.
I know, but do you think that's true, that it's going to create a job for every
Well, guaranteed jobs.
How do you guarantee a job? How?
Redistribution of income. Socialism.
Yeah.
That's how you guarantee the job.
Well, I don't. That redistribution of income, we can even do it now. We don't have to go with the Green New Deal legislation. And I look. Socialism in this country will never survive. In theory, whoever practiced that, more power to you. But it's not something that This country will not survive under the mantra of socialism. I personally, and I'm a Democrat.
I think 75% of the country doesn't want it, if not more.
Well, I don't know. But you have a lot of people out there.
Let's just say 50% of the nation voted red, 50% blue. That 50% who voted red does not want it. And I think the majority, I think a lot of the Democratic Party does not want socialism.
Yeah.
They might not say that out loud.
Yeah. Well, I just think socialism is not is not the way to create one party system. It just doesn't work. It doesn't work. If you look at these oppressive regimes that we still have, Cuba, go to China, you go to Korea, and they have these regimes where they practice socialism. It doesn't operate. Venezuela, Nicaragua, it doesn't work. It doesn't work. It oppresses the poor. It doesn't do anything to allow people to compete. Competition is good. It's good for the economy. It's good to have. These countries that practice this type of politics, it doesn't work.
It doesn't work. And I think there was a mandate on November 3rd saying we don't want that.
Yeah, I personally, and I'm a Democrat, I don't believe in socialism.
Yeah. And I'll be honest, if the Democrats keep going that way, in my opinion. I mean, one of the reasons I left the party, Democratic Party, is I thought it was going way too far left on many issues, but mainly economic issues. If they keep going further left, I guarantee you in 4 years, there will be a Republican president elect.
In 4 years?
In 4 years.
I don't know.
Biden will be a one-term, well, he's a one-term anyway, let's be honest.
Why? Why do you say that?
Why? Because let's be honest, I think in 2 years, we're going to have, if President Biden is President Biden-elect, in 2 years, it'll be President Harris. She even called in her own administration that. She already said the Harris administration. She knows. She knows. You know, Leslie. There were deals made that, Joe, you got 2 years, and then it's Kamala.
But you know what? There's deals made also in the Republican Party.
Oh, I'm not saying there's not.
I mean, I think this presidency of Donald Trump caught a lot of people by surprise. I don't think either party was prepared to handle this guy. This guy is a loose cannon, and he says what he means, and he means what he says, and he doesn't care.
But
and
that's why the people who love him, and I don't love him. I think a president should act presidential.
Yeah, but what is there to love? I mean, you're going to love and follow someone that is grounded, that has some level of consciousness, of empathy. I mean, this guy is, I don't know what it is.
I mean, David Torres, he loves him. And I asked David, I said, why do you love him?
David Torres he's a closeted Democrat.
No,
he
loves the president.
In reality, I mean, what is it to love about
Donald Trump? He loves that he speaks what is on his mind. He doesn't filter. I think you should have a filter. I have a filter. Everyone should have a filter, especially when you're the president of the United States. But, as much as I do have issues with the president, I don't think it was necessarily a bad thing for someone to come in and just be kind of like blow everything up. Because I think it did make us all relook at what politics are. And in the long run, I think we're all going to look back and say, it was good that the president, even if you didn't like him, it was good that he shook things up the way he did.
Yeah, but I don't think
he was a bull in a china shop.
I don't think you look back. I don't think he's going to have a favorable legacy. And I think when you're exiting out like he is now, I think he should work on that legacy so people can remember him.
He cares.
That's the problem. He doesn't care. And when you have someone that doesn't care about the common good of the people, he's not putting people over. He's not putting the people over what he wants, his own personal interest. He wants to satisfy his own interest. That's a problem. That's egocentric.
Well, what I said doesn't care. I don't think he necessarily cares about his legacy. Or what I should say is his winning now means more to him than his legacy. So
and
he's going to win at all costs.
He just needs to pack up and go home and forget about the whole legacy thing and just.
He winning is much more important than his legacy. But why don't we'll take another break and we'll come back. You're listening to USLA Radio and the Republican Zone.
There's a lot of fear in coming back to school. I wasn't sure if I could do it. I'm a 40-year-old man that walked in there to get his high school diploma. It was very hard for me, but the teachers, the counselors, they help you. One of the teachers was Miss Araceli. Miss Araceli, she gave me direction. Every single time I had a question, she'll put down whatever she's doing and she'll come over and she'll sit there with you until you get it.
Thank you, Ms. Araceli. I know you make a difference in people's lives because of the person and teacher you are. I wanted to be here because I wanted to thank you for helping me get a beautiful gift.
50% of getting your high school diploma is walking through those doors. The other 50% is doing the work. Getting your high school diploma, it is a life-changing experience. It really is.
Find free adult education classes near you at finishyourdiploma.org.
If you love them enough to suck the snot out of their nose at 4 a.m., then surely you'll check NHTSA.gov/the-right-seat to make sure they're in the right car seat.
Welcome back. You're listening to Usula Radio and the Republican Zone. I'm your host, Drew Murray, with my friend and co-host, Leslie Acosta. And we're going to finish up. Should we talk about the state elections?
Yeah, let's talk about the
we'll
state
talk
elections.
about state elections. I say, I take full credit for bringing Tim DeFore on our show. And I think that is what pushed him over the edge.
Yeah.
And that's how he won the Auditor General, by coming on our show.
So he beat out Nina Ahmed.
He did.
I thought they were still battling that.
No, I don't think so. And the votes are counted. You can't contest it.
So
I'm pretty sure.
Nina lost that race?
Nina, unless Tim DeFore was declared the winner.
Okay, so he was about okay, so Nina Ahmed. Okay. I thought she had won that race.
I don't think so. Unless that changed in the last day.
Okay, so he was elected.
He was elected.
So we have to bring him back.
We got to bring him back now.
We have to definitely bring him back because he came on this show. We talked about, we had that great conversation about the contracts. And I'm impressed. I'm impressed.
I think he's really good, and I like Nina too. I've only met her once. Actually, not even met her. Just she was on the panel that you had put together.
Yeah.
But I was really impressed by Tim. And Stacey Harity also won the treasurer. She beat.
What was this guy running? Torcell. Okay, so 2 Republicans won.
2 Republicans.
Well, that's huge.
Well, Tim, I think that was the first time in 50 years an Auditor General from the Republican Party won.
That's pretty huge.
That's why I called it a red wave. By the way, did you make these microphones red and blue on purpose? Now that I'm looking at that,
Yeah,
you got the blue, the red. I never noticed that before. But no, I think it was a red wave. I said that before. Well, I'll say this: it's a red wave if we take the Senate.
In more than 2 decades,
Yeah.
I mean, we haven't had a Republican Auditor General in Pennsylvania.
Yeah, and the treasurer was a huge upset as well. And Josh Shapiro did not win by that much. The Attorney General.
What did he win by?
I think it was like 55-45.
So it was close.
Everyone thought it was going to be a blowout.
I mean, I'm very surprised that Nina Ahmed did not win. I thought she had it in the bag. I really did. So if he was declared the winner on Friday, we need to bring him back to the show.
Yes, absolutely.
Because
I will reach out.
reach out to him and let's do the interview. I think he must be so elated right now.
No, absolutely. So in Pennsylvania, if you look at it, it was absolutely a red wave.
Yeah, well, remember, a lot of the votes came from the middle of the state, and that Nina, if she didn't get enough in Pittsburgh and didn't get enough in Philadelphia, that kind of hurt her a little bit because that's where the votes really come
I think
from.
Tim's from Harrisburg.
I think he is from Harrisburg, from that area. Yeah.
And Stacey, Stacey Harity is from, I think she's from outside Pittsburgh, but from a small town. So she's Western PA somewhere.
So those are the 2 big Republican upsets.
Yeah, two row offices.
So let's talk about the city of Philadelphia. Martina White, she held her seat.
Martina held her seat.
So she's the darling of the Republican and the Democrats. They vote for Martina.
Oh, absolutely.
She's like an equivalent to a John Taylor, who was a Republican and had Democrats vote for him.
So she, her district is still weighs heavier Democrat. I don't know the exact numbers, but there are a lot of Republicans. But that in Philadelphia, that means there's 40%.
Yeah.
Republicans.
Well, she's a very unique individual. The fact that she's young, she's a female, and her roots are in Philadelphia.
Yeah.
So that's kind of unique. Philadelphians, Democrats, moderate, they will vote for someone like that.
Yes. And she was the only. There was one other state rep that, and I forget her name off. There was one other state rep who did win.
Republican seat.
Republican, but it must be a seat that borders that goes into the suburbs.
Okay.
Because Martina's the only one who was 100% within the city of Philadelphia. The rest of us lost.
Yeah.
I lost, obviously. Aaron Bashir lost. John Nungesser, who was running against Joe Hohenstein for John Taylor's seat that he held before.
So a Democratic seat got that seat now? A Democrat got John Taylor's seat currently?
Joe Hohenstein.
So they flipped that seat?
They flipped it last cycle.
Okay.
Joe Hohenstein beat Patty Pat last cycle. And then John Nungesser, he did pretty well. I mean, I think he got 40%.
So now the House of Representatives in Pennsylvania, the Democrats, they gain seats. Is that correct?
I don't know if they did gain seats.
Yeah, because they picked up John Taylor's seat.
Well, not this. I'm saying this cycle.
Okay.
I thought
But they still hold the majority.
they still hold the majority. Both the Senate and and the House.
Well, I'm surprised, with this blue wave that they were talking about, that, given that you had Biden on the ticket, I'm surprised that they didn't pick up more seats.
Well, it could have been maybe the down ballot races. People didn't vote. Maybe.
Well, maybe they would just focus on the presidential.
Yeah, and that is probably. And I haven't looked at that data yet. I don't know. What the presidential numbers are versus what the down ballots were. I think in my race, if I'm just looking very quickly, that a lot of people didn't get down to the bottom.
Yeah.
And the state rep is very down bottom. That is the
yeah.
lowest. So,
but you need to do this again. You need to run again.
Run for state rep. I will not run for state rep again. That was a one and done. I will be running again for city council, but not for state rep.
Okay.
The city council with the 2 seats that are reserved for non-Democrats.
Yeah.
That's a race Republicans can actually can go in and win.
They can capture that. Yeah.
They can capture that. But look, before, no matter what, we got a Supreme Court justice. So it is
Barrett.
a 6-3. We do have Barrett.
But yeah.
And we're talking about it on the break, Obamacare, and whether or not they're going to overturn it. And
I don't think so.
I don't think they're going to. Once the campaign was over, I've just been working. So I actually haven't followed a lot of it. That's why I don't know the numbers. I had to rely on you for so many numbers. But from what I heard briefly, it's not going to get overturned.
No, I don't think it's going to get returned. You have a Roberts who was a Bush appointee. He's not going to, he's leaning in what I've been reading that they're not going to overturn it.
I heard Kavanaugh as well.
You have 22. If this happens and they overturn this, we're talking about 23 million people not being covered. And so I don't think the Supreme Court is going to go down that road.
The question is it unconstitutional?
Or is it?
They
right.
shouldn't
And
be legislating anything.
Well, the legislature voted on this, and they voted decisively on this. Why take it to the higher court?
But is it
to decide
unconstitutional?
Right. Well, I don't know if I mean that's what they're going to determine now.
If the mandate
if it's constitutional or not, and I don't know. That's where the decision and the opinion is going to come from the legal mind to determine if it's constitutional or not.
I don't want them to overturn it. I actually, I'm a moderate, and probably the more liberal side of me is that everyone should have affordable health care.
Yeah.
Obamacare needs to be fixed though.
Yeah.
Because too many small businesses are being hurt.
Wow.
It's extremely expensive for small businesses, and healthcare and Obamacare specifically. So it's got to be fixed. But I don't think you get rid of something. I don't think you blow it up and then say we're gonna design something else.
Right.
You got to fix what it is because you're right. 22 million people would be out of healthcare.
Yeah.
And we got to find a way to have affordable healthcare. But when you got rid of the mandate of was basically a tax, it doesn't necessarily make sense to me though. I mean, they should not have gotten rid of the tax.
Yeah.
You either get healthcare or you pay the tax.
Yeah.
And what should happen is everyone went and got healthcare because you had to pay out of pocket anyway.
Yeah.
So I do think you need both though.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't necessarily understand how they got rid of the tax, but still say you have to have it.
Yeah, right. I think you don't have to pay that.
And I'm not sure if it is constitutional to say you have to get health care.
You can't mandate someone. You can't. Yeah. Well, I don't know.
So but I don't think you should get rid of. I don't know. I think they got to fix it, and they got to make it affordable. But I don't want government-run health care. I mean, people say, well, we should have Medicare for all. I don't believe we should have that.
Yeah.
Because the government's not good at running anything. So I definitely don't want them running my health care.
Yeah.
I mean, that's it. I mean, in a perfect world, if healthcare would be incredible and we would have the best doctors, you would go whatever doctors you want, and the government ran it, I would say I would be willing to pay higher taxes for that. And when I say that, meaning I already have great healthcare, I would pay higher taxes so everyone could have that level of healthcare. But the government is not good at running things.
Yeah.
And I definitely don't want them touching healthcare.
Well, I agree. I agree with that. Well, Drew, I think we've come to the conclusion of this great show.
That's right. Well, thank you again for
Drew.
co-hosting with me. I have a guest next week, my friend Fareed. We're going to come and talk about the shooting of Mr. Wallace Jr.
Yeah, we have to talk about
that'll be an interesting conversation because we disagree. We completely disagree, me and my friend Fareed and I. So, well, thank you all for listening. You're listening to USLA Radio and the Republican Zone with Drew Murray and my friend Leslie Acosta.